Joining us here on the Rich Eisen Show is the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Dennis Allen. Good to see you, Coach. How are you?
I'm doing great, Rich, man. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you coming on. What does a coach do at the end of May, early June? What's life like? What are you up to?
Oh man, this is my favorite time of year. You know, you've gotten through the draft, you have your draft picks, you have your signed free agents, and we're able to get out here and practice football. Without the stress of winning and losing games. We're able to get out here and really coach and teach, and it's a fun and exciting time.
Yeah, I mean, coaching and teaching, really, that's part of the job still? That actually is part. Wow, what a concept!
It's actually the best. It's actually the best part of the job, man. That's why we got into doing what we do. It's working with these guys and trying to help improve them. Look, not only as football players, but also as individuals.
I bet. So what does one coach or teach to professionals at this point in time of the year? What are you doing?
Pretty much everything. We start every year anew, and we start and teach all the basic fundamentals from step 1 all the way through steps 10, 11, and 12. And so you don't really want to assume anything. You want to make sure you're teaching these guys, all of them, as if it was the first time that they've ever heard it. And look, offensively, there's a lot of things that are the first time that they've ever heard it. And so there's a huge attention to detail there. And yet, even though we've been in the same system here since 2017 defensively, we still teach everything like it's day one install.
Are you talking hip drop tackles, anything like that? Does that you get that deep?
We haven't really talked a whole lot about that. I feel like this really, this isn't that time of year where we're getting into the physical battles and the tackling aspect. We're still teaching tackling. And so the hip drop tackle has never been anything that we've taught. It hadn't been, something that we've utilized or taught. I think as we get into training camp and we get a little closer to playing games, we'll start talking a little bit more about what that looks like. And like I said, quite honestly, I haven't thought a ton about it because it's not a tackling technique that we've utilized or taught. And so we haven't put a lot of focus on it.
Okay. Dennis Allen here on the Rich Eisen Show. Offensive install with a new OC in Klint Kubiak. What can you shed light on that front?
Well, look, I think it's been awesome. The attention to detail that our offensive staff is put into place, I think has been really outstanding. I think what we're seeing from our offense is going to help our whole football team. There's a long time here where we saw a lot of the same plays, a lot of the same personnel groupings, same motions, and I think if you see them year in and year out, you kind of anticipate what's coming, and so I think both offensively because it's new, and then I think defensively because we're seeing a lot of different looks. I think it's been greatly beneficial to us.
How different is it going to be from what Saints fans are used to seeing from obviously all the years of your predecessor being there and having that spill over into your first couple of years? Dennis?
Yeah, I think probably significantly different. I think we've been a lot of what we call 11 personnel. 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end in the game, and I think we're probably going to see a little bit more. 2 tight ends in the game. We're going to see a little bit more, fullback being utilized in the game. We're still going to have, some of the things that we've had in terms of the drop back passing game and utilizing, 3 wide receiver sets and things of that nature. But, I think you're going to see a little bit more, motion and things like that to try to, mess with the defense's eyes a little bit. So I think it'll be, significantly different in terms of how we package things. Look, the reality is there's only so many things that you can do from an offensive standpoint in terms of scheme. There's certain run plays that everybody runs, and how do we dress them up differently, and how do we coach it better, to where our players can execute it better. And that's the same thing in the passing game.
Dennis Allen, head coach of the New Orleans Saints, here on the Rich Eisen Show. Draft night, we haven't spoken since then. What was it like to be in the middle of the first round of a draft where quarterbacks went 6 of the first dozen? You're sitting there, and I'm sure, again, you're not in this quarterback game, and unless you were, you know what I mean? Like it kind of is a bit of a mystery what your approach might have been and what it was like to watch all those quarterbacks go right in front of you. Dennis.
Yeah, look, the reality is I was kind of excited to see all the quarterbacks go, because at the spot that we were picking at, quarterback wasn't a high priority at that spot. And so when you see those quarterbacks going, that means they're pushing some other players down the board to you. And so I felt like this year, a lot of things kind of lined up for us in terms of how we had players graded on the board and in terms of what our needs were. And so obviously offensive tackle was a huge need for us. We felt like it was a really good draft for offensive tackles. And we felt like, in particular, once the quarterback started going off the board, we felt like there was a good chance that one of those guys was going to fall to us, and certainly, that happened.
And if you're willing to share, I'll ask anyway. Surprised by the rival in your division, 8th overall, choosing one of those rookie quarterbacks? Dennis?
Yeah, look, I'll be honest with you. Yeah, I was a little surprised that they did that, and yet. I think anytime you identify somebody that you think has a chance to be your quote unquote franchise quarterback, then I don't ever think that's a bad move to take that player. So yeah, certainly I was a little surprised by that, and I know that that's a player that they're really one of the two, Kirk Cousins or Michael Penix, one of the two is not going to be on the field, and so that's one less weapon that they have.
Taliese Fuanga is the guy that you chose, and is he plug and play left tackle for you?
Yeah, I think that's the thought process right now, is that we're going to start him out on the left side. That's where we've been working him the last couple of weeks. He's looked pretty good over there. I tell you, the thing that I really like about the player, I think he's a tough, nasty player. And I think that's something that we can use up front on our offensive line. I think offensively, our ability to be a little bit more physical, a little bit more nasty, I think is something that we need to be.
And you're going to serve more Kool-Aid on Bourbon Street, I guess, now that you drafted that kid in second round. What did you like about him? What do you think?
Listen, I thought probably one of the smarter, more instinctive players that I've seen in a while. And so I really like the fact that, he had some inside-outside flexibility in terms of the corner position. I loved his intelligence and his instincts. And I think, look, you have to be smart to play in a Nick Saban defense. And I thought he, did that extremely well.
And lastly, in terms of your draft, 5th round, you kind of hung out 3rd and 4th rounds best you could through the draft. And then we were all wondering, sitting up there on the NFL Network draft set, where would Spencer Rattler wind up? And it wound up him going to your team. What is your plan for the kid at quarterback?
Look, I think the plan is that he comes in and really basically competes, and we'll let the cards kind of play out as they do. I think we were excited about the fact that we got into the 5th round and he was still there. I think, from where we had him graded on our board, we felt like this player was probably more of a second or third round talent, and the fact that he was still sitting there in the fifth round, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact there were 6 quarterbacks already taken in this draft, and that's a little bit of a unique position in terms of the draft. So the fact that he fell all the way to us to the 5th round, we were really excited about that. He's got tremendous talent, and now it's just about getting him in here, teaching him the things that we want him to know and be able to execute the things that we want him to be able to execute.
A few minutes left with Saints head coach Dennis Allen here on the Rich Eisen Show. My crew, if you wouldn't mind popping up the schedule on the screen. When you saw this for the first time, you thought what, Coach? What'd you think?
Well, look, I thought the beginning part of the season was going to be a tough stretch. Opening up with a division opponent at home, and then having to go, on the road to Dallas. We got Kansas City on a Monday night. We come back and play Tampa Bay, then Thursday night versus Denver. I thought that was, that early part of the season was going to be a really tough stretch. And then I looked at, the end of the season. There's a couple of potential cold weather games that we got to be, ready to play in, at New York and at Green Bay late in the season.
Do you like the bye, week 12?
Well, look, I don't really get a choice in it, so it doesn't really matter whether I like it or not.
No. You get preferences. You're a human being. I mean, you have rights.
Yeah, in a perfect world scenario, you'd love for that to be right around, week 8. And yet, it really kind of depends on how the season plays out. Sometimes if you're on a roll, you don't really want that bye, or sometimes you have some injuries and you may need the bye a little bit earlier. So, I think much better than having it in week, 15 or 16.
Well, you knew the Sean Payton appearance in the Superdome would be in front of a nationally televised audience. I mean, you couldn't have been surprised about that one, right?
No, I wasn't shocked. I knew it was going to be a primetime game. I just didn't know which primetime game it was going to be, whether it was going to be a Thursday night game or whether it was going to be a Monday or Sunday night game. I knew it was going to be primetime. Guess I'm kind of excited about it being a Thursday night game. That's a lot less hoopla on a shorter week, I guess. And so, we'll kind of get in and go get the game played.
What do you think it's going to be like that night in the Superdome, Coach?
Oh, I think it's going to be a great atmosphere, as it usually is for a Thursday night game. And look, I mean, obviously with Sean, bringing the Denver Broncos in here, his first time back in the Superdome against the Saints. I mean, certainly there's going to be an electric atmosphere, and a lot of eyes will be on that game.
All right, last one for you. And if you don't mind me putting guardrails on this question, you can't give me the coach's answer that you just gave me a minute ago of like you have no say in it, and it is what it is. You can't give me the it is what it is on this one, okay?
I can, but
no.
I won't.
I am telling an NFL coach what he can and cannot do. I understand that's a third rail subject matter. Listen, the news that apparently the Players Association is coming up with an idea to reconfigure the offseason and potentially put OTAs in a ramp-up period in June to have July being filled with practices. Do you like that idea, Coach?
Well, I think that's a twofold question there, Rich.
Okay.
I think what we're able to do during this time of year, I think is really good teaching environment. I think it's a great teaching environment. What I don't really like about where we're at in terms of the calendar, I don't really love that there's a 5-week. We put in all this work, and then there's a 5-week period where, we don't get an opportunity to spend any time with our players. And so I guess I'd probably rather see it somewhere in between, where we have some time, during the quote unquote off season time, where we get a chance to work with a lot of these young players that need the work. And then maybe shorten up that break in between and have a little bit more time to kind of ramp up for training camp. But that would be kind of, the way I would see it. I know this. I know there's a ton of work that has to be done to get ready for training camp. and a ton of work that has to get done in preparation for the season. And so I know you got to find time to do that work. There's no shortcuts to success in this game that we play. And so, certainly we've got to find the time. If we decide to change something, we've got to find the time to get the work in.
So the 5-week period you're referring to be clear, is the one that's upcoming mid-June all the way to the beginning of training camp when rookies report in July. Is that the 5-week period you're referring to?
Typically there's about 5 weeks there that, is kind of a dead period where, the players, not necessarily the rookies, you got a couple extra weeks. You can keep the rookies an extra week. You can bring them back a week earlier. So there's kind of a 3-week window where they're on their own. There's really basically a 5-week window from the end of OTAs or minicamp to the start of training camp. And look, I think, if we were able to shorten that in some form or fashion without losing, the off season, I think would be something I'd be in favor of.
Okay. And then the last request of you, crystal balling, which again, I know is another thing I'm treading lightly, asking an NFL coach to crystal ball it. The December 29th home date with the Las Vegas Raiders. How's your quarterback going to feel about that one, would you say? And you as well, I might add.
Look, I would imagine he's going to feel good about that. He's going to feel excited about that. My expectation is, that at some point during that time frame, we're trying to get ourselves ready to make a playoff run. And so I think that's got a chance to be a big game in terms of trying to set ourselves up for the best position that we can.
So there's no time for revenge, even for you? None of that?
Well,
No.
Look, I can't, I'd be lying if I said that those games don't mean just a little bit more, but really what you got to focus on during those times is focus on all the things that you have to do to try to win a game, regardless of who the opponent is. You start worrying too much about who the opponent is, you kind of get out of your wheelhouse a little bit in terms of being able to be successful.
So no special cigar set aside just in case, is what you're saying?
I don't think we need that. I'm not a big cigar smoker anyway.
Okay. Good answer. Look at you, Dennis Allen. Thanks for the time. I appreciate it. Greatly appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Rich. Thanks, man.
Right back at you. That's the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, Dennis Allen, right here on The Rich Eisen Show. Catch The Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.